welcome to another episode of Los Banos Talk. My name is Justin Collins. Today, we're going to talk about the process for selecting a city council person for District 2, which will be happening live as a public meeting at 4 o'clock on January 14th, 2021, or tomorrow. I'm going to break it all down, explain it, how the process is going to work, etc., in just a moment, right after a brief message from our sponsor.
Hi, I'm Sherry Pearson, owner of Pearson's Jewelers in downtown Los Banos. I want to tell you about our newest line, Evocateur. Evocateur bracelets, necklaces, pendants, and earrings are beautiful and make the perfect gift for the holidays or self-reward. Evocateur is women-owned and made in the USA. They are made with 22 karat gold leaf or silver leaf, and you can even bring in your own photo and have a customized print so that you can wear your heart on your wrist. Get yours today. We are still open during the purple tier, and we are located at 928 6th in downtown Los Banos. See you soon.
And we're back. Thank you so much for watching. So, City Council District 2. So, as we know, if we're looking at the City Council in general, we have the mayor, and then we have 4 council members representing districts 1 through 4. And if you can recall, Tom Faria, who is our current mayor, was just elected this last election this November for 2020. However, at that time, he was serving as District 2 city councilman, and he had 2 years left on his term. So as a result, now we need to find a replacement for City Council District 2. And I watched the meeting that occurred on January 6th where they explained the process of how they were going to select said person, what this process was going to look like, and the legalities, etc., of the process. So there's a couple things to keep in mind here. There is a deadline. A decision has to be made essentially by February 15th. If a decision is not made by February 15th, then the council will have to vote on a resolution in order to hold a special election. A couple other things that are important to keep in mind. This interview process is going to be public record. We're going to get to watch it in real time. We're also going to be notified how each council person votes in both rounds of voting. Now, as far as the requirements and legalities and how it's determined the process in which it's voted on, that was rather interesting. It turns out there is no state law or city ordinance that specifically dictates how this process worked. And so essentially what happened is that staff put together 2 options in which they thought was best. The city council deliberated and decided on one, which we're going to go over here now. So what you're looking at now is the PowerPoint presentation that was given to the city council on January 6th in discussion of this particular topic. And so this at this time was considered kind of a tentative suggestion, but I'll be able to tell you which parts they actually adopted and which parts they didn't. So the interview process is actually going to look a little different than this. They agreed on 3 minutes per applicant as opposed to 5, in which this person would be able to give a brief statement of qualifications or why they want to be a council person, etc. And so the council is actually going to ask 2 questions per council person. That's what they ultimately decided on. And each of those questions is going to get 2 minutes each. The math basically broke down to where each applicant will be given a maximum of 15 minutes, but if you do the math, basically what happens is that there's about 12 minutes scheduled per person. However, there's about a 3-minute buffer per candidate. And also notable is that the order of the interviews is going to be set by a draw, so it's going to be random. This is important to note for a few reasons. It was brought up by the city attorney that it is necessary that all of the applicants be present at the meeting for the entire duration of the meeting and even be able to watch the other applicants do their interviews. And the reason is because this interview process must be public and they can't exclude anyone, to include the candidates themselves. By proxy, this kind of means that the first person to go has somewhat of a disadvantage, and the last person to go has an advantage, especially because the questions that are asked must be the same and must be identical. Now, because of the Brown Act, the city council can't really talk to each other privately about what kind of questions, etc., they would like to ask. So instead, they're going to be able to submit their questions via email to the city, and then they're going to be notified whether there was a duplicate question or not, etc. And then that's how they're basically going to get to submit their questions in advance. And then we move on to the voting process. How is this going to be decided? So keep in mind that right now we're down one council person. So the reality is that there are four votes. So there's a high propensity for there to be a chance of a tie. And because of this, they've created the voting process in a way that they believe will alleviate the possibility of a tie. Another thing to keep in mind is that there were six applicants that applied at the time of this being drafted. However, since this meeting, one applicant has dropped out. And so now there are five applicants, and I will be listing them here shortly. So the council did ultimately agree that they'll do the voting immediately after the interview. They felt this was the most transparent thing to do and that it would be better not to delay, and especially right after they've had a moment to hear the candidates' responses to their questions. Two alternatives were proposed. However, I'm not going to go into detail on alternative B because alternative A was the choice that the city council ultimately decided on. So there was an issue that the city attorney was concerned with, and it made sense. This process has to be transparent, and the public has to know how every person voted in each round. But if a candidate hears a certain council person voted for them or against them in round one, then there's a feeling of bias or whatever for round two, etc. So ideally, you want to keep round one at first anonymous, right? And then it's not really anonymous to them, but it's anonymous to the public. And then after round one and two is over, then we would see how the council voted by individual member on rounds one and two. So we're still going to get that information, but so it doesn't interfere with the process itself. We're not going to know necessarily in real time, but we will know almost immediately after. So the process is going to basically work like this. They're going to each have a ballot, right? They're going to, in round one, after they've asked all their questions. So after every candidate has done its 3 minute brief, and after they've done their 8 2 minute each questions, and after they've done their 8 questions, two per council person, then they're all going to get to vote. Now there's five candidates, and there's four members of the council at this current time. So logically speaking, one will have to be eliminated at a minimum. However, maybe two people will be eliminated, etc. Then we get down to maybe 2 to 3 candidates. Now, it's possible for a candidate to actually win on the first round of voting. And so, if a candidate was to hypothetically say win 3 votes or 4 votes, right, in the first round, that candidate would automatically win. There would be no point in having an additional round. However, in this particular case, because now we're at five and no longer six, there's a couple of different possibilities we can think of. There's only a few scenarios that can logically happen just based on math. You could have one person get 2 votes and another two candidates get 1 vote each, thus eliminating two candidates and bringing it down to three for round two. Another possibility is that 4 out of the 5 candidates get 1 vote each, eliminating one. Another possibility is that one candidate gets 3 votes and another one gets one, in which case that candidate who got 3 votes would win. And then the last possible scenario is one candidate getting 4 votes and the other candidates getting none. And if that happens, then also that candidate getting all the votes would win. So if there's no winner from round one, then there would be a round two. And at this point, then they would do another vote. Now, the thing to keep in mind is this: because there are four members of the council, it is possible that there could be a tie, and that's one of the things that they're concerned about. If it happens, then there's a couple choices. One is someone could change their vote. Another is that they could adjourn the meeting and decide to have a revote later, and they could deliberate, etc. There's a couple options available to them, but the thing that it seems as though most want to avoid is holding a special election because it's costly to the taxpayers and it takes a lot of time. And the sooner that the council is filled with all five members, the more politically easier it is for the city or Tom Freya, for instance, to enact his agenda, so to speak. Right now, it always requires three members to vote yes on anything in order to pass something. Right now, it requires 75% of the council. In other words, three out of four. You can only afford one no. However, with one more person on the council, then now you can at least afford two no's. So it makes the probability of things getting done legislatively a little bit better. So it makes sense from the standpoint of the council itself and from us as the city to want this done as soon as possible. Now, once this person is appointed, they'll be sworn in on January 20th, at which point they'll be able to join the first city council meeting. That person then would be the representative or the city council person for District 2 with the same amount of authority as any of the other city council persons for the remainder of that term, which is approximately 2 years. So in 2022, no matter what, there will be an election over that particular seat once again. And without further ado, I'd like to tell you who the candidates are that have submitted applications to interview for this particular seat tomorrow, excluding, however, the person who withdrew their application on the 12th. And those individuals are Eric Ramirez, Jean Lib, Sonia Vasquez, Refugio Llamas, and Elias Reyes. Those are the five individuals that we'll be seeing tomorrow getting interviewed, and this will be a public thing. Now, if you don't have time to sit through the whole interview process, I understand. I'll be watching it myself live, and I'll put out a video as well announcing who the winner are, explaining some of the questions, talking about some of the points that were raised, and basically shortening it and editing it down to a more condensed version where we get to the meat and potatoes of the issues and you can see what happened in a nutshell. If you haven't already, please like, follow, and subscribe to Los Banos Talk. You can follow us on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and losbanostalk.com, where you can subscribe to the free newsletter and get email notifications sent directly to you. Once again, my name is Justin Collins, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.